What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Steve's Random Stuff. Hey, it's been a while since I've done a video. Sorry about that, but been kind of down on the dumps lately with the ongoing problems with the motor. Had everything done. Special thanks to Garrett at McAtee Marine up in Healdsburg. He got everything straightened out on the motor. I just kind of run through what was done. The motor actually was running great. I was up at Clear Lake on last weekend, and we circled the whole north end of the lake, and motor ran great, purred. I had ever since I bought the boat, it's been 8 years, I've always had this little miss at idle, and had it to two different shops over the years. I'm not sure, probably at least a half a dozen different technicians worked on the boat. They always say it's okay, no problem, no problem. Took it to Garrett, and he asked me about these diaphragms on the fuel rail, which nobody's ever asked me about. I didn't even know what they were at the time, but let me just show you what those are really quick. But he replaced them. It took a while to get the parts, almost a month to get the parts from Mercury, because they're on back order, but got those replaced, and that miss that I've been dealing with for 8 years is gone. So we're really excited about that. He did a full service on it, changed the belt up here on the top, went through and changed the impeller, spark plugs, everything, the tracker valve, and then before that, as you saw the videos, I was dealing with that oil alarm. So I changed the filter and the valve, and that seemed to be working. But kind of latter part of the day on Saturday, as we circled the north end of the lake, I noticed that I got a check engine warning on my SmartCraft gauge for low oil again. And circled back around here, the sun's kind of at my back, and I pulled the cowling and the oil was down to about here on the tank. The same problem I had before, where I actually had the oil was like way down in this area. But I have oil on the boat, so I was able to fill this up through the cap, and not sure why I'm losing oil, or the oil's not getting up here from the reservoir. Other than that, the boat ran great, and really happy with the performance. I didn't get up to top speed. I only went about 5,000 RPMs, just kind of taking it easy. Was doing about 50 to 55 miles an hour at 5,000 RPMs, but was running really well. But let me show you really quick that before I get into that issue, what else was done as far as those valves. They're kind of hard to see right down here. There's this silver piece. There's a diaphragm under that one. There's another one under here, and there's a third one that's over on this side somewhere. Right up here, there's a diaphragm underneath that. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing these yourself unless you got the proper tools. Inside here, there's a spring, and Garrett said it's a 100-pound spring, so you kind of need the correct tools to get those off and back on without damaging the diaphragms. Because once you damage them, they're trash, and they're about, I don't know, 270 bucks a piece. So again, one right here where this silver piece is, I'll zoom in a little bit, and then one again down underneath here. It's really hard to see. Basically had to like pull this apart and pull the hoses off. You can see these pink zip ties. These are ones that he's pulled off just to get that all out there and get access to that. So I talked to Garrett about my oil issue, and he recommended that I do a pressure test on the system. You can see the oil tank down there. Pressure test the system. And so the way this works is down here, you can see that, zoom in, that white zip tie back underneath there past my finger. That is the line, the air line that comes off the crankcase, and that air line comes down to the oil tank, to the cap here, and that pressurizes this tank, and then it pushes the oil up through this drop tube. And previous videos I mentioned this drop tube. I didn't show it, I don't think, but on the bottom here there is a strainer, and that's just the oil pickup tube, but there's a hole on top. See, there's the two hoses. So one is the oil going to the engine, and one's the air coming from the crankcase. But anyway, so yesterday I got in here and I pulled off this hose and I pressurized the tank, and it held air pressure for about 45 minutes. Had good air pressure, and it held. I was able to plug the line with some pressure, and as I pressurize this tank will kind of swell up a little bit. So you don't want to overpressure it, but you just want to get enough pressure where the thing starts to bulge. Went through and soap tested all the caps, all the lines. Soap tested any line I can find. Circle back around the engine here. I soap tested here. I soap tested everywhere there's a fitting down and underneath here. This is that brass fitting that I changed before, along with that oil filter that I changed before. So soap tested all that, and didn't find any air leaks. And like I said, I pressurized it and plugged it. It stayed under pressure for over 45 minutes, so no problem there. So the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to run this morning, just to make sure. It's hard to get around here. I'm going to just start it up really briefly, and just to make sure that I'm getting air on this side, because that's the only missing piece of the puzzle. Sorry if I'm bouncing around a little bit. The only missing piece of the puzzle is to make sure that I'm getting air out of the crankcase. Where the hose connects on the engine, that is a check valve, I believe, and if that check valve is bad, then the air is not coming out of the engine. So like I said, I pressure tested the tank. I was getting oil, was getting pushed up to the engine. If I break the breather cap on the oil tank on the engine, oil came spewing out of there, so I'm getting oil up there. So kind of the only missing link, like I said, is if that check valve is bad and oil's not coming out of the crankcase to pressurize the system when it's running. Now talking to Garrett, he says that's really never happens. In all the years he's been working on the Mercuries, he's never had that happen. He said maybe once, if that, but it says it's not something that goes bad. So I'm going to test it really quick. I'm just going to put some water on it, start it up just briefly, and just put my finger over the hole on the cap and see if I'm getting air from the engine to the oil tank. Other than that, I'm not sure what else to do. That's the only kind of missing link. It's pressurized, and oil is getting there if I do pressurize it. So I don't know, I'll do a quick test and I'll check back with you here in a minute. All right, that was really quick. All right, let it run for a couple minutes. And I am not feeling any air coming out of the air line at the oil tank. So basically I just pulled this out, see that, and I put my finger over the hole. I can get that in there. Put my finger over the hole where the air comes out, and I just I wasn't feeling any air. I let it run for a couple minutes, and I'm just not feeling any air coming out. So if I'm not getting air out of the crankcase, then I think that check valve may need to be replaced. So I'll have to try and track down that part. I looked on boats.net this morning trying to see if I could find where that part is on their diagrams, but I couldn't find it, so I may have to just call them on Monday and find that out and then change that, and hopefully that solves the issue. So that's kind of the update on the boat. Like I said, everything else is running great. Good water pressure, running about 20 psi on the motor. Water temperature is great, running 120 at idle, and then as I'm running on the lake, 5,000 RPMs with the water flowing through it, it drops down to about 108 degrees. When I do slow down and come off plane, it does kind of shoot up to like 130 for a second, 134 just for a few seconds, and it drops right back down to 115, 118 or so. So I'm just going to double check with Garrett on that. I think that's just normal. The new thermostats, like I said, I did replace those. The thermostats are in this housing here and this housing here are the thermostats. And I think this is a tracker valve, and then like I said, those were replaced, and everything else is running great. Just need to make sure I'm getting air or oil up to the engine reservoir, and which isn't happening right now. So it's not got no air coming out of the crankcase, but if I pull that line and pressurize it, it works fine. So one of those oddities, I guess, that doesn't really happen too often, but happened to me, I guess. So we'll get that fixed, replace that. Should be really quick and easy swap out of that check valve, and then hopefully everything will be good from there. So anyways, thanks for watching. Once I get that done, I'll be back on the water and get out some fishing. The weather's finally getting nice, like we're past most of the rain, and it's time to get out there and catch some bass. So we'll talk to you soon, and thanks for watching.